Hey everyone, welcome back to Feel English Podcast. I'm really happy you're here with us today. You know, Jake, I was thinking sometimes life feels a little heavy, and sometimes we feel like we're carrying everything alone. And that's actually our topic today. What to do when you feel like no one cares.
Yeah, it's such a real feeling. Even if we have friends or family, there are moments when we feel invisible or forgotten. And many English learners feel this too, especially when studying alone.
Exactly. And before we jump in, if you enjoy practicing English with us, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with a friend. It really helps us keep making these episodes.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts too. Have you ever felt like someone drifted away from you or felt alone even in a group? Let us know. We always read the comments. All right, let's get started. So, Anna, have you ever had one of those days when you walk into a room and feel like nobody even notices?
Oh, yes, many times. There was one day last year, I was sitting in a cafe, trying to work. People were laughing, talking, typing, and suddenly I felt like I was outside the world looking in, a bit like being behind a glass wall.
That's a perfect expression, actually. Behind a glass wall. It means you can see everyone, but you don't feel part of it.
Exactly. And it wasn't that anyone did something wrong. No one ignored me on purpose. But inside, something felt empty. And I remember thinking, does anyone actually care how I'm doing?
I think many people feel that way, but don't talk about it. Sometimes we expect big signs that someone cares, like long messages or surprises. But when those don't come, we think, oh, maybe I don't matter.
Right. And when you feel like that, even small things hurt more, like someone replying late or a friend being busy.
There's a phrase I like: your mind tells louder stories than reality. It means sometimes our thoughts make the situation feel worse than it really is.
So true. And that's why it's important we talk about this openly. Because even when we feel invisible, the truth is we're not alone in that feeling. And that's already a type of connection.
Yeah, that's the first step, understanding that this feeling is normal and it doesn't make you weak, it just makes you human. So, continuing from what we just talked about, why do we feel this way? Why do we feel alone even when people around us actually care?
I think one big reason is misunderstanding. Sometimes people care about us, but they show it in quiet ways. Or they're going through their own struggles and we mistake their silence for not caring.
Yeah, silence can feel loud. There was a time when I thought one of my close friends didn't care anymore. He stopped texting, didn't reply to my messages, and always said he was busy. And you know, that word busy can feel like, I don't have time for you.
Absolutely. And that's a good vocabulary moment. Busy doesn't always mean uncaring. Sometimes it means someone is tired, stressed, or overwhelmed.
Exactly. Later, I discovered he was dealing with work burnout. He wasn't ignoring me, he was barely holding himself together. And when I found out, I felt this mix of guilt and relief.
Burnout is a real thing. It makes people shut down emotionally, and when someone shuts down, we often think it's about us, even if it's not.
Another reason we feel uncared for is comparison. You see people online with big friend groups, constant messages, long conversations, and we think, my life doesn't look like that. Is something wrong with me?
Yes, social media creates a perfect world that isn't real. People post their happiest moments, not their lonely nights. There's an expression: you're comparing your behind the scenes to someone's highlight reel.
That's a good one and very true.
And you know, sometimes the reason is simpler. We don't tell people what we need. We want them to understand us without us saying anything. But people aren't mind readers.
Yeah, that's a lesson I learned late. Last year, I felt really alone for weeks. I waited for someone to notice, but no one did. Not because they didn't care, but because I never said anything.
And how did you finally open up?
I told a friend, "Hey, I've been feeling a bit down lately." Just that simple sentence. And she said, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Thank you for telling me." It felt like a door opened.
That's powerful. Sometimes the smallest truth changes everything.
So maybe the real reason we feel like no one cares is this. We don't always see the full picture. We see our fear, we see our loneliness, but not always the reality.
And understanding that helps us move forward with more kindness for ourselves and others.
So, now that we've talked about why we sometimes feel uncared for, maybe we can look at something softer. Those small signs that people do care, even if we don't always notice them.
Yeah, because care doesn't always look like a big movie moment. Sometimes it's tiny, quiet, almost invisible, but still real.
For example, there's a phrase I like, checking in. It means someone asks, "Hey, how are you?" Or, "Did you eat yet?" They're not grand gestures, but they show attention.
Right. I remember one morning when I was feeling pretty low. I didn't want to talk to anyone. Then my sister sent me a voice message. I made coffee, and it reminded me of you. That's it. Just one line.
A simple connection.
Exactly. And it made my whole day lighter. It wasn't dramatic. It was just care in a quiet form.
I think a lot of listeners might relate to this. Care can be a friend remembering your favorite snack, or someone waiting for you after class, or your mom asking if your laundry is done.
Moms always ask about laundry.
It's their love language.
That reminds me of another useful phrase, love language. It means the way people show love or care. Some people use words, others use actions. Some show care through time or small gifts.
Yes, and many problems happen because we expect one type of love language while the other person shows a different one.
Like expecting long, deep talks, but the other person shows care by fixing something for you, or driving you somewhere, or just sitting quietly next to you.
Right. Sometimes care is simply presence, someone staying in your life, even when they don't say much.
And honestly, I think people care more than they express. Many people are shy, scared of saying the wrong thing, or don't know how to help. But they feel something inside, they just don't show it the way we imagine.
I agree. And here's something important. Quiet care is still care.
That's beautiful. And true.
I once had a friend who always pretended to be distant. He never said anything emotional. But every time I was sick, he showed up with soup. No words, just soup.
That's real friendship.
It really is. And I learned something from that. People express care in different shapes. If we only look for one shape, we might miss all the others.
And when we start noticing these little things, the world feels a little less cold.
A little warmer, a little kinder.
So, Anna, after noticing that people care, even quietly, I think the next step is learning to care for ourselves first. What do you think?
Absolutely. I've realized that sometimes we feel uncared for because we forget to give ourselves attention and kindness. And English learners can feel this too, especially when studying alone.
Yeah. Self-care isn't just bubble baths and snacks. It's also how we talk to ourselves, like the words we use inside our heads.
That's a great point. I love the phrase inner dialogue. It means the conversation you have with yourself, and it can be positive or negative.
For example, instead of thinking, I'm alone and nobody cares, you could say, I'm feeling a little lonely, but that's okay. I can be my own friend right now. Small change, big difference.
Yes, and even simple actions can help. I like making a list of small wins each day, things like finishing a chapter in English, cooking a meal, or calling a friend.
That's wonderful. I do something similar. Every evening, I write 3 things I did that I'm proud of. Doesn't have to be big. Even washing the dishes counts.
Exactly. And here's a useful phrase: give yourself credit. It means noticing your own efforts and appreciating them.
I think we often forget that. We look outside for validation, but the first validation should come from us. When we treat ourselves with care, we feel stronger and less dependent on others' attention.
And that's also a chance to reflect. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? Or how can I be kind to myself today? It's a short, simple conversation, but it builds emotional strength.
I remember one rainy evening, I felt completely drained. I was scrolling on my phone, seeing everyone else's happy lives. I thought, nobody cares. Then I paused, made a cup of tea, and wrote down 3 things I liked about myself. It changed the rest of my day.
That's beautiful. And it's also a skill we can practice: self-kindness, self-compassion, recognizing small victories. Little by little, it reshapes how we see ourselves and others.
And when we start caring for ourselves first, we're also better at noticing care from others, big or small. It's like tuning our hearts to a warmer frequency.
I love that. Tuning to a warmer frequency. It's poetic and true.
And it reminds us we're not powerless. Even in moments of loneliness, we can create comfort from within.
So, now that we've talked about noticing care and self-kindness, let's talk about reaching out without fear. Asking for support can feel scary, right?
Oh, very scary. I used to avoid it for years. I thought, if I ask, I'll bother them, or I'll look weak. But actually, asking is a strength, not a weakness.
Absolutely. And there are simple English phrases that make it easier. For example, could you listen to me for a moment? Or, I need someone to talk to. Can you help? Short, clear, and polite.
Yeah. I remember once I was feeling really down, and I sent a message to a friend. Hey, do you have a few minutes? I really need to talk. And she immediately replied, Of course, I'm here. That moment felt like a weight lifted.
That's powerful. And sometimes we think people won't understand, but simply opening up is enough. You don't need to explain everything perfectly.
Another phrase I like is, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, and I'd love your advice. It's honest and invites conversation without pressure.
And sharing feelings doesn't always mean asking for solutions. Sometimes we just need someone to listen.
Exactly. Listening is care too. And the courage to ask is already an act of self-care. A small step, but meaningful.
I also learned that when someone finally opens up, it can deepen relationships. That friend I mentioned before, after that conversation, we became even closer.
And it's also a reminder everyone feels lonely sometimes. We're not alone in feeling alone.
That's a beautiful paradox, isn't it? Feeling alone can actually connect us if we have the courage to speak up.
And learning to do that in English can also build confidence. Simple phrases, honest words, expressing feelings, they all matter.
And for learners listening, remember, don't wait for perfection. Use the phrases, speak simply, and just reach out.
Because a small "can we talk" can change your whole day, or even your whole perspective on life.
Yes,
And sometimes it opens doors we didn't even know existed. Support, understanding, friendship, it's all possible if we dare to ask. So here we are, Jake. After all we've talked about feeling invisible, noticing care, self-kindness, and reaching out, I think it's time to reflect on one big truth. You matter more than you think.
Absolutely. I remember a time I felt completely invisible at work. I thought, nobody sees me, nobody cares. But then a colleague came over, thanked me for something small I had done weeks ago, and it hit me. I did make a difference.
That's so true. And even if recognition is small, it counts. It reminds us that our actions, presence, and even just existing matter to someone.
And sometimes we just need to pause and appreciate our own value. Self-worth isn't always obvious, but every small act of kindness, effort, or care you give or show is a reflection of who you are.
Yes. And another phrase for learners, you're making an impact, even if it's quiet. You don't always see it immediately, but it's there.
That's a comforting thought. It reminds me of the story about a teacher I had in school. I didn't think I mattered much to her. Years later, I found out she kept a folder of my drawings. She said, "You inspired me to keep teaching with creativity." That was unexpected and powerful.
Wow, that's a perfect example. Sometimes care and influence are invisible at first, and that's okay. The important thing is to keep being yourself, keep showing up, and keep noticing small moments.
And notice care from others too. Even if it's subtle, it counts. It's a reminder that connection exists, even when life feels lonely.
So, to sum up, we've learned that feeling uncared for doesn't mean we're invisible. We can notice small signs, care for ourselves, reach out, and remember our value.
And that even small gestures like a message, a smile, or a listening ear can remind someone they're seen and appreciated.
Exactly. And as learners, remember that English is not just words, it's connection. It's expressing feelings, asking for support, noticing care, and sharing kindness.
So, yes, even when it feels like no one cares, your life, your actions, and your presence matter. And you can always reach out and create connection.
A warm reminder, you are seen, you are valued, and you are not alone. As we wrap up today's episode, Jake, I feel grateful we could share these thoughts. Life can feel lonely sometimes, but we've learned that noticing small signs of care, being kind to ourselves, and daring to reach out can change everything.
Absolutely. And even quiet moments, small gestures, or simple words matter. They remind us we're connected even when we feel alone.
For our listeners, remember that every effort you make, speaking to a friend, taking care of yourself, or simply showing up, makes a difference. Your life matters in ways you may not see right away.
And English is a tool for connection. Use it to share feelings, to ask for support, or to encourage someone else. That's real English, full of warmth and humanity.
Thanks for listening. And remember, real English is about connection, not perfection. See you next time.